Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Alagoas in Brazil. As you can tell, we are along the Atlantic Ocean coastline here. And as you can also see, it's not a terribly huge state, right? It's pretty small, but even though it is small, it does have three major geographic regions. Of course, the first being this beautiful coastal beachy region, which just like close your eyes and imagine a beautiful Brazilian beach. And that's what it looks like. Not quite Copacabana, kind of like busy, bustling, just like a beautiful, relaxed beach with crystal clear, warm waters and everything. When we move inland, we enter a more hilly, forested region. This is not the Amazon. The Amazon is over here. So it's like we are not in the Amazon kind of foresty, jungly, but it is very thick with trees nonetheless. And there's also a lot of really interesting lakes, kind of like around here. And then this last region, which is a pretty large region of Brazil, it takes up like this chunk here, but it's only in like this area of Alagoas, just like the most inland part of it, is called the Sertão. The Sertão is sort of the equivalent of, how do I describe it? It's kind of like not a desert, but not lush. It's kind of reminds me of like Mexican desert, like the Sonoran Desert, where you have thorny, scrubby bushes and ranching and cowboys and things like that. It's really interesting how the landscape changes so interestingly as you go farther inland. But we will look at all of these areas on Google Earth after we go over the history. You can see the capital city right here of Maceió, right along the coastline, which is also important to its history. But it's very good for Alagoas now because the majority of the industry of the state now comes from tourism. So you can fly into the capital city here and experience all of the beautiful beach resorts here along the coast. There is still lots and lots of agriculture that happens, but it seems like, from what I can tell from my research, any Brazilians out there, because I know I have a lot of Brazilian viewers, number one, please correct any pronunciation if I mispronounce anything. My Portuguese is absolutely horrible, so please put correct pronunciations in the comments. But also, if anything is not 100%, also leave it in the comments in terms of facts, because from what I can tell, the industry of tourism wasn't really a huge thing until about like maybe 10-15 years ago. It's really starting to build up now. And again, let me know if that's wrong. That's just from what I can ascertain from researching, that it seems like a very new, booming industry in Alagoas. But let's talk about the very old aspects of this region, because this area has been inhabited for a very, very long time. If you know Brazilian ancient history, there are so many different indigenous groups that live in what is now Brazil. We don't even have a final number because there could still be some in the Amazon that we don't know of, right? But think in like the thousands. There are so many different ethnic groups. There's one overarching group known as the Tupi, or Tupi-speaking peoples, and a branch of that was the Kayate, and they lived in what's now Alagoas. There was a very sad event in the 1550s when the Portuguese started to settle. The Portuguese had two big goals, which was, of course, agriculture and conversion to Catholicism. Also some mining too, but those were the big ones. A ship landed here, I think down here, which was primarily a ship that, I'm sure it had other things, but it had, I think, some kind of priest figure. I didn't write down his name or title, who was here to convert people. And the native people here massacred pretty much everyone who was on that ship, including the holy man. And the Portuguese did not take this gently. They came in, and there was an absolutely huge massacre of the native peoples who lived in what's now Alagoas. So that culture, from what I can tell, is still around, especially kind of like in this region here, but obviously not as prominent as it once was. Once the Portuguese started to lay down foundations for their colonies, this area was part of the captaincy of Pernambuco. Which you can see is just up here. There's Pernambuco. The first town built in Alagoas was in 1545. And primarily this region was used to grow sugarcane for the most part. There were other industries. They grew tobacco, they made manioc flour. There's even a bit of Brazil wood exporting, which is why the city is so important. It was a huge export port during these times. But the big one here was sugarcane. And of course, sugarcane is very laborious to harvest and grow. So of course the Portuguese brought in many kidnapped peoples from Africa to work the plantations there. And many of their ancestors there today. There was a bit of a tiff with the Dutch in the mid-1600s. The Dutch, they're just up there, on the kind of northern Atlantic coast. And they were kind of slowly making their way down the coastline, trying to snatch up any Portuguese lands. And there were quite a few conflicts with the Dutch in Alagoas between 1630 and 1654. In some of the chaos of these battles, some of the slaves of the plantations escaped. And they formed what's more commonly known as maroon communities. That's what they're called in the Caribbean. They had a different name for it, but I didn't write it down. I don't remember it. It was in Portuguese, so I knew I'd probably mispronounce it anyway. But they went and established their own little communities and towns out here in the hills and forests. And they did pretty well for themselves until the Dutch finally gave up and left, and the Portuguese were 100% in power again, and the Portuguese went into the hills, found these people, and burned down their villages and kidnapped them once again, which is very sad. I think, if I remember correctly, there are still some towns in this area here that were originally established by escaped slaves that still exist. But not like the maroon communities up in the Caribbean, like in Jamaica and stuff, where the towns are like still thriving with like ancestors of slaves. It's not like that. It's like full-blown towns and things. But anyway, the comarca of Alagoas was established on October 9th, 1710, kind of making this area separate from the rest of Pernambuco, and it wouldn't fully separate from Pernambuco until 1817, And this is when the sugarcane production really amped up. It became pretty much the only agricultural industry in the area. If you know your Brazilian history, you know what's coming in the 1800s, a very turbulent time politically. There were lots of independence movements in many parts of Brazil, and Alagoas was no exception. Lots of protests and marches and even skirmishes for Brazilian independence from the Portuguese. And then when that happened, Brazil became its own monarchy with descendants from Portugal's monarchy. So then the independence movements turned into anti-imperial movements protesting against the king, which would wind up being successful, and Brazil became its own republic. In fact, the two first presidents of Brazil were from Alagoas, Deodoro de Fonseca and Floriano Peixoto, both from Alagoas. Really interesting. I think I read somewhere that they call it the land of presidents because of that. Which, like, out of all Brazil's presidents, you got two. But nevertheless, it was the first two, pretty important people in Brazilian history. And pretty much in modern day, not too much has gone on here. It's kind of the more, backwoods, quiet area of Brazil. It's not, but compared to the rest of Brazil, not much happening here. Sugarcane is obviously not as big an industry as it once was. It's still grown here, but it's not like the massive booming powerhouse. Like I said, right now it's definitely tourism to these beautiful untouched beaches. And pretty much that is the history of Alagoas. I'm really excited to show it to you on Google Earth. So let me carefully grab my tablet. It always makes noise. I have to be so gentle. Success. Alright. Here we go. Here you can see State of Alagoas. I wonder if I can tap it. Yes. So I can zoom out and show you exactly where we are in the world. So here's big old Brazil. Absolutely massive country, right? And there's the little state. So you can see there are definitely much, much larger states within Brazil. It's a tiny one. But here are these beautiful beaches, right? So gorgeous. This beautiful clear water. You take boats out to the reefs here and you can just walk around and enjoy the gorgeous water. Most of the pictures here are going to be of these beautiful beaches and the reefs. It's so pretty. Yep, you just get to splash in this beautiful warm water, eat some food out on the water. Yeah, this is primarily what Alagoas is known for, out on these beautiful boats. So, even though this is lovely and we could look at these all day, we're going to explore the rest of the state as well. So you can see all of the landscapes of the state. So here you can kind of see the sertão I was talking about. This kind of drier patch of land here. I didn't read deeper into how this area exists. Surely there's hills here, and then all the wet, rainy air gets trapped in the hills, and you have this kind of dry region, is what I assume, but I don't know for sure. It makes sense, but anyway. Here we can see Marseille. You can see just how big it is from above. And it is a big, beautiful beach city, little lighthouse. Oh, who's that? Oh, it's Fonseca, the first president of Brazil. And, yeah, old churches and things, but it's become a tourist spot, as you can tell from these pictures. Oh, look at that. It's a big lion. It's definitely a touristy kind of place. I'm gonna adjust the mic real quick. You can't tell, but I need to lean over so I can see this a little better to figure out what I wanted to show you next. Here you can see some of the lakes here. This is Marechal Deodoro, which was, I believe it was the first city established in Alagoas, and it's obviously the hometown of Deodoro da Fonseca. Beautiful church there. Beautiful church there. Yeah. There's one thing that the Portuguese did implement. It was their Catholicism. It's a very, very Catholic country. Very proud of that religious heritage. Among other things, but it's kind of a staple of Brazilian culture. These old, beautiful, beautiful churches here. So yes, these big lakes were a big part in transporting from the central regions to get it down to the coast to send it out. There's another praia right here, another beautiful beach. But like, it's so nice, isn't it? So yeah, you see what I mean when it's like, it's a Brazilian beach. It's beautiful, it's luxurious, it's warm, and I'm sure there's some surf somewhere, you know. Look at that guy. Yeah, he's going out. His little dog. But it's not Copacabana, right? It's not like overly, I want to say populated, but you know what I mean. It's not crowded like a lot of the other like famous Brazilian beaches. So if we head in here, there's Piraca, another little town here. Little town. So it's a pretty church, isn't it? It looks very big, doesn't it? But compared to the rest of Brazil, it's not that much. You can even see compared to Maceió over here. It's not as big. Let me turn on the 3D. Maybe we can get a better shot of this landscape here. So you can see some of the more farming regions up here in these hills, more of the lakes. Yeah, lots and lots of farming in this region here. Palmeira dos Indios, which the cities need, because look at this little tiny Christ the Redeemer. It's really cute. This is a really beautiful spot as well. I bet it's on top of a hill and you can see everything. Yeah, that's really neat. I like the little Christ the Redeemer statue. A little mini one. But then let's head out to the Sertão. Kind of give you a good idea of what this landscape is like. Like, if I showed you this and told you this is a coastal state, you wouldn't believe me, right? Now, when I was looking through here, it's very hard to find good pictures. So let's just try over here. Nope, no pictures there. Try this town. No pictures there. Maybe there's some street views we can see. People, sorry for the bright blue. Maybe someone's got some pictures in the landscape. I'm sorry if that's too bright. Stop that. Don't want to get into Pernambuco. We don't want to look at the road here. Stop, stop, stop. I guess not. I know I've seen pictures I could show you. Try this place? Nope. It's pretty devoid of people, but you can see here that it's very dry, very hot, with little patches of green. They have a thorny bush called the caatinga, which I believe is poisonous. Don't have anything like that in North America, but it is a really interesting kind of landscape. Like, if I showed you this and said this is northern Brazil, you would be like, no, that's obviously southern Brazil. But no, this is it. If we go all the way over here, you can see the river that creates the boundary here. It's not popping up, so that's really fun. Maybe it was on this side. I thought it was on that side. This is a disaster. every single time. You know, I rehearse these videos, I practice, I go on Google Earth and make sure that I'm lost now. What happened? I make sure that everything is where it has to be, and then I hit record and it just all goes to waste. It's on this side. Sorry, there's someone yelling outside. I hope the microphone didn't pick that up. Yeah, the river goes out to here. Another important waterway for people transporting goods inland to get it to the coastal areas to ship it out to Europe. Alright, there's now a dog barking at the person yelling outside. So this is getting far too chaotic. I'm going to end the video here. I'd highly encourage you to explore this region yourself. Maybe you'll find some better spots than I did. Wow, this did not go as I planned, but things rarely do, don't they? Thank you so much for watching. We're not even in the right state. And there's the dog. I hope that you found this video relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good night. Good night.